6 to 7 months into carnivore, the OCD was completely gone. I no
Okay.
longer had obsessive thought spirals, and, like, that alone, I was like, "I have my mind back.
Yeah.
Carnivore is the diet for me."
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching our videos. If you'd like to support us some more, you can explore our homemade natural skincare products at purelytallow.com. Thank you so much for supporting my small business. Hey everybody, welcome to the Carnivore Revolution. I'm Serena, and today my guest is a very dear friend, JC. You guys may know her as Lady Carnivory on Instagram. JC and I are pretty good friends, and I wanted to share JC's story because I think every story we share, we can help different people. And so JC, thank you so much. I'm so glad we could make time to do this today.
And thank you for having me on. When I first met Serena in person, I was like I warned her ahead of time. I was like, "When I see you, I'm going to cry," because Serena has just been, like, this amazing positive light in my life, and I appreciate you so much.
And the truth is, I feel the same way about you. I mean, you are just always such a shining star wherever you go. And so I'm really grateful that we're friends.
Me too.
Okay, so here we go, back to business. So I wanted JC to share her story. JC is one of those stories of carnivore and roses. Sometimes carnivore just isn't enough. And so we're going to touch on that today. We're going to talk about her CIRS and how she is working with that. That's chronic inflammatory response syndrome. I got that right, didn't I? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that, how hard it is to diagnose, and how you may have all these things wrong with you that your doctor doesn't see, and you may not be crazy. So we'll get into that, but let's start with your original healing story with carnivore and how that happened.
Yeah, so prior to carnivore, I came from a background of eating disorders and OCD, as well as like low grade joint pain. But the eating disorders and the OCD started manifesting when I was 16, when I started a vegetarian diet. I don't think that's a coincidence. Uh, but as a young adult, I kind of got over the eating disorders, but I still had this debilitating OCD. In times of stress, it would be at its worst. And I would like check that my door was locked, and then I would walk down to my car to go leave for work, and then I'd be like, "Did I lock my door?" And I'd walk up back up to my house and, like, check that the door was locked, and walk down to my car and be like, "Did I lock the door?" And I would do that hundreds of times to the point I would get a panic attack and not be able to go to work. I also had a lot of, like, medical anxiety, so I would see moles on my body and think that it was skin cancer, and so I would, like, dig them out with a steak knife. I'm very lucky I never got any sort of, like, bacterial infection or flesh-eating
Yeah.
thing from that. But I kinda thought all of that was normal, right? Like, I would go to the doctor and they'd be like, "Oh, no big deal. Here's a no big deal. You can try some therapy." And no matter the pills or the therapy that I tried, it never really helped any of that. And then fast forward to 2017, I started a low-fat diet, and my coworker told me she was starting this crazy new diet called keto, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna kill yourself."
Yeah.
So I went on PubMed and I started looking at the keto diet because I was trying to prove her wrong. And I found all of these articles about keto lowering inflammation and helping with low grade joint pain, which was something that I had had since I was 16. So I was like, what the heck? I'll try it. I did keto for 3 years
Okay.
and I'm a very binary person. So, like, if I was a gram over carbs, I would be like, well, I might as well eat donuts because this is already ruined today. I
Oh,
can't.
I know that.
So then I yo-yoed keto dieted from 2017 to 2020, and then I heard Sean Baker talk about carnivore on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's just keto but easier because you don't have to track." So I committed to doing a month of carnivore, and it was a game changer for me. I had some benefit from doing keto, like it
Mhm.
lessened brain fog. It maybe slightly impacted my joint pain, but not the benefits I was reading about on PubMed,
Mhm.
right? Like I didn't
Yeah.
have that big of an impact.
Right.
But within 30 days of carnivore, the annoying toddler voice in my head, which is how I described my OCD at the time, I could just tell it was a little quieter. It
Mhm.
wasn't gone.
Yeah.
It was still there, but it was quieter, and it was enough to keep me going. 6 to 7 months into carnivore, the OCD was completely gone. I no
Okay.
longer had obsessive thought spirals, and, like, that alone, I was like, "I have my mind back.
Yeah.
Carnivore is the diet for me." I also had the reduction in joint pain that I was looking for, so I was finally able to pursue a really big goal I had to do a fitness competition. I'd become obsessed with bikini competitors starting in 2015, but never felt like I could do it because of the low grade joint pain, but then carnivore allowed me to do that. So in the summer of 2021, I competed in a bikini competition, and the day after my show, I started to get plantar fasciitis pain in my foot. If anyone has ever had plantar fasciitis, it is painful. It's like
very painful.
stepping on glass.
It's terrible.
I don't think I had any awareness of how awful it was until I actually experienced it. But that was kind of the first sign that I was experiencing something really wrong. Next, I had uveitis in my right eye, which is inflammation of the inner eye. I was completely blind in my right eye for a period of like 3 months. And I also had enthesis or enthesitis, which is inflammation of tendons and ligaments,
Mhm.
to the point where I was started walking with a cane. So 3 months from stepping on a stage, I started walking with a cane. At the time, I was so scared, I didn't know what was happening to me. Eventually,
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with something called ankylosing spondylitis, which is an autoimmune condition. But it wasn't until Judy Cho reached out to me in April of 2022 saying I might have CIRS that I finally had an answer for what had happened to me. Because it was crazy, right? I was on stage
Mhm.
competing in fitness competitions, feeling great eating a carnivore diet, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden had this extreme autoimmune crisis. So, just a little background on CIRS or chronic inflammatory response syndrome. It happens when someone who is genetically predisposed to being really bad at eliminating a biotoxin encounters that biotoxin.
Okay.
For me, it was mold. I had moved into a family home in Florida that was, I mean, it's Florida, it's very humid there, and the house was moldy. And so that actually triggered CIRS, which then triggered the autoimmune condition. So
Okay.
I started CIRS treatment, and within a few months, I had my mobility back. Within even more months, I was pain-free. I can happily say now that, 2 years into treatment, I am 100% symptom-free. I know I sound congested right now. I have a touch of the COVID, just, but it's been an incredible journey, and I'm very grateful for all of it. It has made me a more empathetic person. It's allowed me to help so many other people who have these like mysterious illnesses come out of nowhere, or the fraction of the carnivore community that aren't seeing the benefits that all of the other carnivores are getting.
Mhm.
And it's just been a really rewarding journey. I'm sorry, I just rambled so hard.
No, I wanted you to tell everything. So let's talk about CIRS for a few minutes because that doesn't get as much attention as I think that it deserves. Because there are people I mean, you got lucky because Judy Cho reached out to you, but
Very lucky.
we've both heard of lots of people who go to the doctor, go to the doctor, go to specialist after specialist, and they leave with the doctor saying, "You're fine. There's nothing," or whatever. And so people have a really hard time with it because you start to think that you're crazy. You start to think that it's just you. So let's talk about CIRS and how somebody might go about becoming diagnosed with that if they think that there's something wrong that isn't being seen.
Yeah, so what happens with CIRS, like I said, you're genetically predisposed to being bad at eliminating a biotoxin. So what happens is your body launches this innate immune response, but it can never hand off to the adaptive immune response, which is where you would create like antibodies that would help you remove that biotoxin. So the biotoxin is circulating and your innate immune system is just ramping up and up and up. And the chronic inflammation, it causes a multi-system, multi-symptom manifestation. So there's kind of like these archetypes of CIRS patients. For me, it was very much joint pain. For some people, it might be GI issues. For other people, it could be neurological issues or fatigue. It manifests in so many different ways that it is kind of tricky to diagnose because doctors just kind of want to take whatever you're experiencing it and then rename it in Latin. Hold on just a second.
Okay. The doggy wanted to go out. Woof. I heard woof.
Sorry, Steph.
That's okay. It was really quiet.
Okay. We overlook a dog park, and so I just knew it was going to get worse. Um, Manifestations, there's different archetypes. So for someone who's going to the doctor and they're just being told, "We're not quite sure. We're just gonna rename what you're experiencing in Latin," and that's really what happened to me, right? Like,
Yeah.
fibromyalgia is just inflammation of your muscle fibers. That's
Mhm.
not really helpful, it's not getting to root cause,
Right.
but CIRS is root cause. If you address that chronic inflammation, if you address that biotoxin, it's going to allow you to recover and recover from a surprising amount of things, because for me, I thought, I might recover from CIRS, but I probably have some leftover stuff from the autoimmune condition that it triggered. Like, I thought I was going to have to do some sort of additional therapy for the knee pain that I got from the CIRS. But no, that resolved as well. And that's been not only my experience, but the experience of many CIRS patients. So going back to your point of how do you get diagnosed, there are 37 symptoms associated with CIRS, and they're arranged in 13 symptom clusters. If you have 8 of the 13 symptom clusters, meaning you have a symptom within that cluster, it counts towards your total symptom cluster count.
Okay.
It's like you have a 95% chance of CIRS.
Interesting.
And then from there, you can do, it's called the visual contrast sensitivity test. And it's a visual acuity test. It tests your ability to see blurred lines because of all the chronic inflammation. It blocks up the tiny little capillaries in the back of your eye, and it reduces your ability to see blurred lines. So you can actually not only use it for diagnosis, but also tracking your progress through CIRS treatment. And then the third thing you would do is blood tests. There's kind of two parts to the blood test. One part is the genetic predisposition part. So they'll look at your haplotypes to see if you're predisposed to CIRS. And then the second part is the innate immune response. So it's a little bit different than you would see for like typical autoimmune blood work. But they're the diagnostic process is really accurate at this point. Like they've really pinpointed it down. If you get through the blood work, it's like you have CIRS.
Okay. So is it worth it for somebody who like just keeps having problem after problem, and no matter what they do, they seem to not be able to get well, and the doctor can't really diagnose anything? Is it well known enough by doctors that somebody could go into a doctor's office and ask to be checked for it?
No. The good news is you can do the symptom clusters and the VCS test on your own without a doctor.
Okay.
And then if you fail both of those, right? Like at that point, I would start looking to work with a CIRS practitioner. I personally follow the Shoemaker protocol because it's the only clinically proven path to healing from CIRS. And I'm not about wasting any more time or money on being sick. I wanted like the sure thing. You can find Shoemaker certified practitioners at survivingmold.com.
Okay. And you have a group where you help people, right? With Barbara, you want to talk about that so people can reach out to you, right?
Yeah, so me and my best friend were diagnosed at the same time, and we were very grateful to have each other for support through that process. And we really realized that that was a gap in the CIRS, space. We wanted people to have the same support that we had in each other. And so we created the CIRS group. You can find us over at thecirsgroup.com. We also have a podcast and we share a lot of information about CIRS over there.
That's wonderful. Okay, so let's get back to carnivore. So as a carnivore, when you or switching to keto, let's say, since you did that first, did you have any of the typical withdrawal symptoms? Was it really hard for you to switch over to a ketogenic diet?
Yeah, I remember I had the keto flu, and I remember very specifically, I had a friend who was like organizing like Christmas. It couldn't have been Christmas. I guess it must have been Christmas. We were like collecting materials to make the bags for homeless people that you hand out around Christmas time. And I remember very specifically like getting in a fight with her about whether we should buy individual socks or bulk socks. Like that was how much keto flu was just impacting my brain. I was so randomly irritated. And she was such a sweetheart. She was just like, I know you're going through this thing right now, so we're just gonna talk about this next week. And it really was like 3 days of just like adjusting to the diet, and then I was fine. But the number one thing I'll say is electrolytes.
Yes.
Electrolytes help me a bunch.
Yes. Electrolytes make a big difference when it comes to carnivore. If you don't have the energy you hear people talk about, or you have muscle aches and cramps, or if you have any kind of headache, electrolytes can really get you through a tough time. And the other thing that gets you through a tough time is bacon. Always have bacon on hand. They call it purse bacon for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Always have bacon on hand when you need it. So how strict were you in the beginning, and are you still that strict now?
No and no. So I've been carnivore for almost 4 years now, and I am very into self-experimentation, right? So I've kind of done the gamut of versions of carnivore. When I first started, I was very loose in my definition of carnivore because I wanted it to be easy to transition to. I already thought the diet was going to be restrictive. Plot twist, it wasn't. But I already thought it was going to be restrictive. So I didn't want to put like all these limitations on myself. So I would eat like sausages, and I would have fruit as a snack, and I would have cheese and pork rinds, and that would be like a meal.
Yeah.
So it was just eating whatever it took to eat mostly meat. I will say throughout the entirety of prepping for my show, I ate bacon every day. Bacon has always been a staple for me. When I became very sick with autoimmune stuff, I did try beef only for a period of time, and that actually caused me to develop histamine reactions to beef. So I'm very hesitant to recommend people reduce to one meat type for an extended period of time. I think we're probably better off eating a variety of types of meat. That way you're covering all of your nutritional basis, right? Like if pork is higher in B1 and then beef is higher in iron, if you're having that mix of nutritional values in your diet, you're more likely to get to 100% on all of those different nutritional data points.
Yeah, and I think when people switch to carnivore, they hear like meat, eggs, and dairy, and they think if people automatically, when you say the word meat, they automatically think of red meat. But
Mhm.
there are so many other kinds of meats. You can have scallops and shrimp and any kind of seafood, and you can have pork and veal if you like that, and lamb. There are so many different things that you can have, and so if you like all of those things, it's really kind of the carnivore rainbow. There are so many different things you can have, so many different colors of the carnivore rainbow, even that you can just have so much variety. And people will always say, don't you get bored? So, how do you
Mm.
keep from getting bored?
Well, I do have a blog, ladycarnivory.com, if you wanna check out my recipes. I really like to do I so my heart is with moms, right? Like,
Yeah.
moms trying to feed their kids better, that just, like, warms my soul. But I
Yeah.
know with kids, it can be more difficult to get them onboarded onto a diet, especially if they're used to mac and cheese. So I created a lot of different recipes, so you can have pizza and gnocchi and ice cream with your kids and have it be more carnivore based.
Mhm.
So I like to throw in some more elaborate recipes when I want to, but quite honestly, part of the thing I love about carnivore so much is how easy it is. Like you just throw meat in a pan and cook it. I
Yeah.
do think I eat more fish than most carnivores do. I
Okay.
typically have like salmon a couple times a week. And then when I grocery shop, it's not like I buy multiple of the same meat. I try and get a different meat for each day of the week. So I'll
Oh,
get
that's
like
great.
pork chops, ground turkey, salmon, lamb, beef. I'll try and, like, get the entire carnivore rainbow every time I shop.
That's a really great idea. I don't do that, but I should. That's a really great way to do it so that you don't get bored. So, when you switched to carnivore, or even now, did you then, and do you still now get like backlash from friends and family over it? Like, they give
Um,
you a hard time still?
I think my family is used to me doing weird things, but they
Yeah.
also know that I love to research stuff and that I
Mhm.
don't just dive into things. I typically spend a lot of time researching something to make sure it's a good fit for me. So
Mhm.
I think they had a lot of security in me doing that. I should say that my mom's side of the family did. My dad's side of the family was very skeptical at first and disowned me at a certain point because of my
Yikes.
carnivore journey.
Yeah. Well, that can happen. That's happening with me right now with one of my family members. Yeah, I'm not allowed to speak of it anymore. I'm not allowed to talk about it anymore because he thinks I'm going to die from it. Meanwhile, he's on the DASH diet, and I'm healthier. Like I
Mm.
just think I think I hope that the medical industry will catch up at some point and see people like you and people like me who are doing well and our blood work is good and like say, huh, that's weird. Look into this and figure out why why is your blood work okay? Why are you not sick? Why are you not dead after however many years? I think that hopefully at some point there's going to be some sort of a crossover where the doctors really care and try to figure out what's going on here and why the nutritional information is so backwards.
Yeah, I hope so too. And it's hard when, especially when it's like family. I
Mhm.
always feel like they have to hear it from someone other than you.
Yeah.
You're too close. But if they heard it from like another angle, like someone else telling them, they would be much more likely to be receptive to it. And I don't understand what that is. It's
Yeah.
like it's like you're too close that it's polarizing in some sort of way.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, what does a typical day of eating look like for you now?
Ooh, I'll tell you what I ate today. So for breakfast, I had garlic bread cheese. Bread cheese. Can we talk about bread cheese for a second? It's
Please talk about Gardeners of Wisconsin. I love their bread cheese.
it's so good. It's so good. So bread cheese for the uninitiated,
Mhm.
and you should pause this podcast, go buy some, and then press play again. It's cheese that's firm enough for you to fry in a pan.
So good.
So it's crispy on the outside, gooey on the inside. So I had garlic bread cheese, bacon, and eggs for breakfast. And then
Mm.
for lunch, I had lamb, which I just cooked up in a pan with some garlic salt. That was delightful. And then I haven't quite finished out my day of eating. I'm probably going to have, what I've really been enjoying lately is spreading either goat cheese or Greek yogurt on a plate and then topping it with fried eggs. And then it's like
Yum.
a little bit sour, a little bit tangy, and I've really been enjoying that just,
That
like,
sounds good.
top it off at the end of the night.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. And I want to go back to the bread cheese for a minute because I mentioned Burgers of Wisconsin, and that is an incredible brand. They send it to you in a cold pack. They have other things too, sausages and stuff, but come on, we're here for the cheese. The cheese is delicious. I like to cut mine up and fry it in butter. Do you fry yours in butter?
Today I fried mine in bacon fat. So I'm disgusting. I never clean out my pan because I just like I
You're just going
have
to use it
like
again.
yeah, but it's amazing because like this morning I cooked my bacon and then I cooked my lamb in my bacon fat and then I cooked my cheese in my bacon and lamb fat and it's just like
And then
every
the eggs.
day it gets better
Yeah. And then you
because I
cooked
have
your
more.
eggs and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, I think it tastes like a grilled cheese sandwich is what it
Mhm.
tastes like without the bread. You're literally just eating cheese. You cut it into the like size strips of like string cheese, and then you just get all the sides fried and it's crispy on the outside. When you pull it apart, it's all stringy.
Gooey.
So
So
good.
good.
I'm gonna have to make some tonight. I love bread cheese. It's so good. Okay, so was that all you ate today? We got distracted.
Yeah,
The eggs,
yeah, I had another serving of bread cheese in there as well at some point.
bread cheese. It's all about the bread cheese.
Really.
So if you had do you have some book recommendations for people that might be watching that are interested in getting started but don't really know where to start?
Yeah, Judy Cho just released a really great book, The Beginner's Guide to a Carnivore Diet. I have a book that's going to be coming out December 31st of this year. So if you hold on a minute,
Sweet.
it's the 30-day carnivore boot camp. If you met me, you would know I'm not a boot camp person. I'm very much like find out what works for you kind of person.
Yeah.
So the title is hilarious.
Yeah.
But it really takes you through all of the aspects of, starting a carnivore diet. But if you're watching this before December 31st, 2024, then I would recommend Judy Cho's Beginner Carnivore Diet book.
Okay.
I also love Sean Baker's book because it has so many testimonials of
Mhm.
people who have healed various things from
Mhm.
carnivore. I think it's a really powerful piece of literature just in getting carnivore stories out there. And then
That's
this
awesome.
isn't carnivore related, but
Yeah.
a book that changed my life
Uh-huh.
was The Joy Plan by Kaya Roman. So after I healed from CIRS, I still had a lot of limbic trauma. Just
Mhm.
I was very much in a fight or flight state all of the time, and I was angry all the time. And I'm not naturally an angry person, so it felt very disjointed from who I am. And I just had this natural intuition that I needed to pursue more joy. So I looked up joy in my library app and it
Mhm.
came up with the joy plan. And I read it, and it's the perfect balance of like woo woo and science. It's storytelling, but it also has like really practical things you can implement right away. That book changed my life. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Has really nothing to do with carnivore.
That's okay. That's awesome. I've actually heard you talk about that book before, so that's definitely something that I'm glad that you recommended. So if you had one piece of advice for people, what would it be?
Just give it a try. Like we were talking about our family members not being receptive to it. And I just wonder, like, if they gave it a shot for 30 days, would it change their lives the way it changed ours?
Yeah.
I think you have very little to lose in
Mhm.
committing 30 days of your life to trying a carnivore
Yeah.
diet. The
Mhm.
time will pass whether you do it or not. And the time might pass in a really delicious way
That's right.
for you to try carnivore.
That's right, and it's certainly not gonna hurt you to do it for 30 days. There are many other diets that people here watching have tried without ever asking to see a research paper or a study or some sort of double blind trial, but Pop-Tarts, corn flakes, frosted flakes, Coke, Diet Coke, juice fast, you name it, people eat that stuff without ever asking for a study, and so 30 days certainly is not gonna hurt you.
It's only gonna help you. It's
Yeah.
only gonna open your mind to possibilities.
Absolutely. Well, JC, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I hope your story can help somebody.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for giving me a platform to share my story. And if anyone has any questions about CIRS, I'm more than happy to answer them. You can find me at Lady Carnivory everywhere.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching. Be safe, be well.